Is that all you have?
Before we start, I just want to say that this is a part 2, and we'll pick up from 2005 to current day Resident Evil figures. So if you haven't seen part 1, I mean you don't have to, but I think it's pretty cool. I think it was a good video. Also, I missed a couple from the last video, and thanks to Nemesis Won't Die for the help. The camo variants for select Palisades figures, they also had vinyl statues, but I mean, they're statues and they're nowhere in my mind. Moby Dick had some variants as well, like blood splatter variants, and these odd Midas and Silver Surfer touched figures, which was definitely a choice. They also released a G2 Birkin, and he just looks so good. I'm so mad I missed him. The sculpt work here is insane. He also had a charred version, but who cares? But just base Birkin is so good. But I think that's all, and if it's not, I'm super open to hear what I missed. But with that being said, let's get to these figures.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
In 2006, NECA, who is still making bangers to this day, picked up the Resident Evil license for Resident Evil's 10-year anniversary. I didn't mention it before, but in 2002, Resident Evil had a remake of the original game come out, with much improved graphics, gameplay elements, and controls. So NECA will use those updated designs for their 10-year anniversary series. This series will bring us 8 Resident Evil 1 figures: Jill, Chris, 2 different zombies, a Crimson Head zombie, a Hunter, a Licker, the Tyrant, and Hunk, who was definitely not in Resident Evil 1, but oh well. This was before NECA moved on to higher articulation like the ones seen in the original Mirage figures and that original Street Fighter 4 line. So these Resident Evil figures were rough on articulation. But not just articulation, because, oh no, I'm getting Moby Dick flashbacks. We'll start with Jill, who just may have the most awkward and uncomfortable in-box position I've ever seen. But like Palisades, the box was super cool, being in that style of the original Resident Evil. She came with a multitude of accessories as well, being 3 grenades, a pistol, a first aid spray, and a taser. But good luck getting her to hold these because she is in a fixed position and is designed to only aim and shoot. The paint is good, which is the best thing about this figure, aside from the actual sculpt of the body and the body alone. Because that face, that's not Jill, man. I don't know who that is. Next was Chris, who fared better in the face department, but it's hard to mess up on RE1 Chris, but still props to them. His fixed position allowed for a little more variation, and the sculpt was really good, which will be a constant with these Resident Evil figures. Great sculpts, but not a lot of articulation. He came with everything Jill came with, but instead of a taser and pistol, they were just replaced with a shotgun and knife. I'd say Chris took the win home for the stars department, but let's move on to the more grotesque and undead department. And yeah, this is a Resident Evil zombie, alright. Especially a Resident Evil 1 zombie. They've always had this charm. I don't know, maybe it's the white eyes, but I really like this figure. And it can get away with the limited articulation because the zombies only really ever do this pose. And NECA was in their Toy Biz bag, since they brought in the action feature of the limbs being able to pop on and off, so that was really cool. The Toy Biz parallels wouldn't stop there, as he came with his Cerberus zombie dog, and you can open his mouth. And honestly might be the best Cerberus dog we've had, but let me know what you think. After the base zombie was the Crimson Head, which is what the zombies turn into after they marinate in their extra dead forms for a while. The torso of the figure seems to be reused from the base zombie, but everything else was new. The head was obviously more red, but more aggressive in the face. The same can be said for the arms and legs, which were now clawed and more tattered. The same is said for the Cerberus, who comes with a new sculpt and looks more dead than undead, which I didn't even know was possible. The last of the 3 zombies was the lab coat zombie, who came with a raven and a severed hand. I really like this zombie as, like the original Toy Biz version, the ribcage is visible even with the coat on, and the head sculpt was as good as the previous 2, with this one still having some hair and a drooped down eye. NECA went 3 for 3 on zombies, so let's see if they could keep it up with the other bioweapons. The Hunter was indeed the most faithful adaptation though. For some reason these companies will always cook with the Hunter, and I'm not complaining about it. The mouth could articulate as well if you wanted your Hunter to be either geeked or locked in. He didn't come with any accessories though, but the presentation alone saved this guy. I'm hesitant to say the same about the Licker though, who for the first time, isn't in a crawling position. Instead, in a position that means it hurt you, but it honestly looks like that one Omni-Man meme, and you know what I'm talking about. But in all seriousness, this figure is so lame. The tongue is bendy wire though, so it can move, but the articulation was terrible. And I don't know, when I think of Liquor, I don't think of this pose. The sculpt is good though, even if the colors are a bit bland. Hunk was a cool sculpt admittedly, but he's where the pre-posed issues with NECA started to really show. In his intended pose, he looks awesome and is up there with the top of the series. But when in any other pose, he just looks so stupid, there's no way to sugarcoat it. The bright red of the goggles is done really well here though, and Hunk isn't a hard design, but it's easy to mess him up, and I'm glad NECA just didn't. It's that articulation that just throws it off though. The Tyrant was the last one of the anniversary line, and it is extremely well done and painted. He does differ from the Palisades one because he's based off the remake version rather than the more bulky original version, but the difference makes the figures greater for different reasons. The heart looks to have a bit of translucent plastic, which just makes the reds pop a bit more. I also like the blisters throughout the body to show how unfinished of a bioweapon he is. But to give hope for the future, NECA revealed this SDCC exclusive Leon, who was in a Resident Evil 4 package but was clearly in his Resident Evil 2 design. Probably just to get the sales up since RE4 was so fresh on everyone's minds. The figure was of course pre-posed, but am I crazy in saying he kinda looks cool? Oh wait, never mind, he looks ridiculous, and honestly he looks a little confused. But the accessories added were a really nice touch. He had his RE4 pistol and shotgun, but man did the pre-posing just kill all the aura he could have had. But this was only the beginning of the pre-posed shenanigans.
Detrás de ti, imbécil!
It would only take a year until NECA got to a full Resident Evil 4 line with 13 total figures. But they weren't the only contenders in this time span, since a little known company called Hot Toys wanted to take a dip in survival horror. Hot Toys was a smaller Hong Kong figure company who specialized in 1/6 scale figures with better details than the average figure. When Hot Toys got the Resident Evil line, they were only 8 years into the company's lifespan, so they had a lot to improve on. And with the pressure on their shoulders, they picked Resident Evil 4 Leon to be the first official Resident Evil Hot Toy. And he looks... well, okay, he looks good, he does look good, but just not as good as we'd hope for a Hot Toys, at least nowadays. The body was very anime-esque rather than what Leon actually looked like in the games, and the joints were still visible, so it was definitely a primitive Hot Toys, but the actual clothing was really good, and the head sculpt is definitely hit or miss. It honestly just depends on what angle you look at it from, but this was a great start to something special. They also gave him a sizable amount of accessories, each with great detail, but that's kind of what you expect when you pay Hot Toys money. An RPD variant was also released, but I just can't get jiggy with it, simply because it's the RE4 Leon head on the RE2 body, which, like, I know sounds stupid, but these two are very different individuals, and the face should reflect that. But the actual RPD clothing was so freaking good, like actually so good. This was definitely the better version. I just wish he had a younger face, but it's good. But remember when I talked about the exposed joints on Leon? Well, for the next release, Krauser, they immediately corrected it. It only took one release for Hot Toys to lock in, and it works in the favor of the figure. He looks really good. He really does look just like Krauser. The proportions do seem just a tad bit off, but maybe it's just the clothes that are throwing it off. But this year just showed that Hot Toys could improve and improve quickly. He, like Leon, had a variant release, but this one was more upgraded than Leon's RPD suit. It was his mutated form, which saw him shirtless, without his hat, and of course, with his mutated arm. And it does look good, but it honestly looks bland. Like it's missing so much grotesque detail, I'd say. It just makes him look cartoony in the end. I mean, as cartoony as Krauser can look. Lastly was the Chainsaw Ganado, who's definitely rough looking, but the idea was there. But in execution, the results are this goofy guy that spilled some tomato sauce on himself. He even looks bored. There are just little things that are missing that would add up to make a figure that would be fully faithful. But Hot Toys, they'd get it sooner or later. Now let's check back in with NECA's Resident Evil 4 line. And
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy.
I have opinions on this line. To start us out, we got Leon, and somehow they made him even lamer than the RPD outfit release. Like, how do you turn this into this? I mean, I guess he's supposed to be doing his pose he does on the cover, but like, no. Just don't. Why would you do that? Why would you even do that? He looks like a goblin. My Glorious King is going goblin mode. Every time I look at him, I get mad, man. I miss Palisades. The variant Leon was still in this stupid pose. This time it was more faithful to the cover image, but that doesn't mean this is a good figure. It barely looks like Leon, and the paint is good, but it has this weird glossy finish that just straight up looks ugly. Ada was just kind of a statue. I mean, I'm exaggerating, she could move her little stanky leg, but other than that, and her arms kinda, this was kinda it for Ada. Which is super disappointing because Ada's so cool in Resident Evil 4. But, if you really like this pose, you're gonna have a great time with this figure. She does look accurate enough, but I mean, I just really wish we could do other poses other than this one. But I don't know, maybe the Jill from last wave really sold well, so they were just like, let's do that again. The sculpt was good though. I came here for action figures NECA, not statues. I'm glad modern day NECA is better, because if they would have tried this with the upcoming 2012 Ninja Turtles, I would have been outside the offices looking for somebody, anybody. I would have been looking for John NECA himself. The Chainsaw Ganado had an insane sculpt and paint job, but again, the articulation. Only his arms and forearms were able to articulate, so it made it so only 2 or 1 pose could really be done. But the sculpt was really, really good. Vertigo was great though, I'll admit that. This is the first figure in the RE4 line that looks like love and care was put into its creation. The articulation had finally jumped up. The arms, the head, the legs, and even the tail could articulate while having a great sculpt. Was NECA finally getting the hang of it? No, because they immediately reverted to old ways with Jack Krauser. It seems like a theme with this NECA run, and honestly all the Resident Evil figures, that they absolutely cook up with the disgusting and disfigured bioweapons, but drop the ball with the actual, regular people. And I say that because Krauser is a perfect mix of both bioweapon and regular dude. And you can clearly tell what their strength is. From the mid-transformation shoulder to the full transformed arm, the sculpt and paintwork is so good. I'm a sucker for the big yellow eyes on these Resi figures, but beyond that, this is faithful enough. I just wish the rest of the figure, beyond the arm, was as well done. The Gyarados Wolverine dudes were next, and they were only okay. The enemy in the game is pretty forgettable, so the figure wasn't going to be too extravagant. Like Krauser, the human elements are very lackluster, but the creature heart thing in the back is very, very well painted, and he was able to take his claws off, in case you wanted him to be nice on that day. The Regenerator came soon after, and I selfishly hate this figure. Not because of the paint, which is really good at combining the grays with the red hints of blood, or the sculpt, which shows the sharp edges in a way that's not too overbearing for the figure, but instead for the fact that I just like the other design better. I don't know, man. This is scarier than this, and I don't know if that's a hot take, but this is definitely scarier than those two, but they have a 2-decade advantage. It's not fair. The Regenerator also had a thermal vision variant that showed all the hearts, which is how you kill it in the game, and I do think this is really, really cool. I can see myself putting it like on my desk or something, but I can't see someone displaying this with the other figures, but hey, I'm welcome to be proven wrong. I'm gonna group this last batch together because they're all basically the same. Los Iluminados monks. These guys were all pretty much the same. The red one is definitely the most extravagant one, but that's intentional since it's like that in the game. They all seem to have the same body sculpt, with their differences being in their heads and accessories. So to generalize it, the body sculpt is great. Little to no articulation, but that's just what we've come to expect from this line. The red and skull monks both have the crossbow, but obviously their masks are different. I like that you can see the red monk's eyes though, it's creepy. The last two were the shielded one with his flail, which I didn't know was the name of that spiked bald thing. But anyway, this monk had his face exposed, but was wearing a hood. And lastly, was a regular looking monk with his face still exposed, but his accessories, I feel, are what makes him the best one. He comes with a scythe, which is already pretty cool, but he comes with a Las Plagas head, which just looks insane. insane. Like this is how I display him on a shelf. Like I think this is the best bang for your buck. He looks really, really cool. And it offers a bit more variety with this figure. I just think it looks really cool. But after this, there were no more Resident Evil 4 figures officially released. And that's true even to this day, which is beyond disappointing. Because this line was just, it was just so bad, man. It had its moments, but overall, the figures were stiff, unappealing, and apparently were made of really hard plastic. So yeah, I'm incredibly sad that my favorite game has this as its legacy with action figures. And what makes it worse is that this was only a couple months before NECA locked in and started adding legitimate articulations to their figures. Which does suck, but maybe one day soon the license will be picked back up by who knows who? Maybe NECA? I don't know. But even if the Resident Evil line was finished, that didn't mean that NECA was done with Resident Evil. Because there was another game set to release 1 year later in 2009 that was said to be the biggest and baddest.
Resident Evil 5. Come on!
Resident Evil 5 released on March 5th of 2009 and immediately made it clear to all Resident Evil fans that slow-paced, scary stuff, man, this was over, man. This isn't your mom's Resident Evil. This one has more explosions, more QTEs, and lots of punching. The story was simple enough. A hyper-buff Chris Redfield and his new partner Sheva are sent out to investigate what's essentially the same outbreak as Resident Evil 4's that was in Spain, but this time it's in Africa. And it's more evolved, though not as grotesque in my opinion. It's eventually revealed that this is all his doing. And you go on a mission to stop him, and maybe you'll save Jill along the way, and punch some boulders, and blow up a facility, and fight this dude on some volcano. Man, this is sick. This is cool. But this was clearly a far cry from the series' origins. Even if this game sold insanely well, it was a bit of a shock to longtime fans and had a lot of controversy for certain reasons. But with the new game came NECA's Resident Evil 5 series. And they must have heard the feedback from the previous series, because it's not an exaggeration to say that this is leagues, and I mean leagues, above what they had just been putting out. And it literally boils down to the massive improvements in articulation, along with the sculpts just being more accurate to the game. Chris was really well done, from the face sculpt down to the boots. The paint was super faithful to Resident Evil 5's design, and just like the game, this dude is super buff. And when I say they went from gray loot to legendary loot in terms of articulation, I'd be exaggerating. This is more like blue or purple loot, but it's still really good. This time, the torso, the entire arm, the bicep, the wrists, the legs, the thighs, even the ankles had articulation. This was the definitive Resident Evil 5 Chris, and I'm here for it. He also came with a shotgun, pistol, and a knife, just to add some extra seasoning. Next was Sheva, who obviously isn't as buff as Chris, but you can't tell me this isn't better than all the other NECA figures. I'm not even the biggest Sheva fan, but this figure is convincing me. She didn't have as much articulation as Chris, but she looked very faithful, and she came with a sniper, a pistol, and a knife, which was nice. And lastly for the series was the big executioner dude from the game who I genuinely forgot about, and I just played this game 2 months ago. So that kind of goes to show his screen presence, but besides the strange character choice, it makes sense, as this dude has such a great design, and is so physically imposing, and the work in the details department is really impressing me. He has all these bloodied nails sticking out, with blood splotches all throughout the apron and the gloves. There's even detail in the mask to show that there's someone under there, and he can definitely hold his huge hammer axe weapon, unlike SHF Guts, so even they knew how to do it back then. SHF, come on, what are you doing? But seriously, his big axe has just the same amount of detail as the figure. The more I look, the more I'm impressed that they managed this much detail out of this nothing burger character. But it is a great design. But after those 3 figures, believe it or not, NECA was done with Resident Evil, which is crazy because they missed out on so many awesome characters, especially characters that could have benefited from the upgrade in articulation. We never got Claire or Wesker, and I know it's greedy, but we never got an updated RE4 Leon or RE3 Jill with the new articulation. And I feel like those would have perfectly capped off everything, but no, NECA was done with Resident Evil, and they would go on to create banger Ninja Turtle figures for the next 15 years, and I'm not complaining about that in the slightest, but they will forever be in the Hall of Mid in terms of Resident Evil figures. and I still don't even want to look at this thing. But even if NECA was done, Hot Toys came back with a vengeance. In September of 2009, they started off their Resident Evil 5 line with Chris. And you could just see the upgrades from 4 immediately. First off, the head sculpt was much closer to the game than Leon's was, and his build was a bit more lifelike, but that's not to say he doesn't have his flaws. The body is nice, but the clothes make him look unnaturally bulky, even for Resident Evil 5 Chris. And the game's clothes are super tight, but these are really baggy, and it looks odd. The same issue applies, that it's just missing maybe a bit more shading here and there because he just looks so bland, just like Krauser. Sheva looked much better and more faithful, even if the joints were showing. I think her having a thinner frame and not having insanely tight clothing in the game adds to the authenticity of the figure. But the detail is there with her. It's just that same bland issue, but oh well. Lastly, for 2009 was him. Wesker was the final release of 2009, and this fiend was of course the best one, simply because he just got the aura and the faithfulness of the game. You could even take off his coat if you like that look, but I love the coat look for him. There was even bendy wire in his coat, so you could just pose around with whatever you wanted him to do. The only thing missing would be the Ouroboros effect. If he had those, this would be a genuinely perfect Hot Toys, but he's still really good. And he even had his evil eyes under his glasses, so man, they knew what they were cooking, man. I hate him. But I bet you thought after Wesker, we'd be done with 2009. But nah, man. Square Enix's PlayArts Kai has entered the arena, and they entered strong. They'd been known for their larger, more articulated figures. They were around 8 to 9 inches tall, so they were in their own ballpark in a way. But they'd pop out with both Chris and Sheva. Chris was, well, he looked a tad bit too old, and his shirt was a tad bit too glossy. Actually, the whole figure kind of looked glossy, but that's really the theme with PlayArts Kai figures, so I kind of can't complain about it. The attention to detail and the great sculpt was definitely there, and the shading that Hot Toys seemed to lack was there as well. But he looks awkward. He really does, but the articulation was definitely up there. Sheva, on the other hand, looked so weird. Like, so insanely weird. The body sculpt isn't even that bad. Like, it's actually really good. The problems arise when you get to the actual face, because who is that? That ain't Sheva. Are we for real? Like, genuinely, why did they feel the need to darken her eyes so much? She looks like a normal human being in the game. Why did they do this? Like, how are you gonna let NECA pass you up? 2010 and 2011 saw one and only one company making bangers. New bangers, that is, because NECA would peek out one last time to release the original Resident Evil Series 1, in an Archives line, that is. And it seems like, other than money, it was to promote the Archives Wii game and Umbrella Chronicles. So the love for the game with NECA was just no longer there, and they came out of retirement for a quick little bag. But the company producing new bangers was Hot Toys. The first of 2010 was a Stars version of Chris, still with the Resident Evil 5 head, but I feel like it's less of a deal with Chris than Leon because it fits the body. I honestly really like this figure, and I think it works because of how bulky Chris's original outfit kinda was, so I think that this is one of the best ones by far. And the accessories are a better selection than the first Chris, so this dude is definitely up there with that first Wesker. Speaking of Wesker, he was next to get the Stars treatment, and he looks pretty good. Not as good as the first Wesker or either of the Chris's, but RE1 Wesker is like his own acquired taste in a way. That sounds weird. He has his own acquired charm in a way. So if you enjoy that look for Wesker, I can see you liking the Hot Toys version. The last Resident Evil 5 Hot Toy would be Jill. Two Jills. BSAA Jill and her battlesuit. I'll start with BSAA Jill because I don't really like it. This or her other outfit. But anyway, she looks bland. Bland but faithful. The head sculpt was rough, I'm not gonna lie. That doesn't really look like Jill, let alone RE5 Jill. So, I mean, I don't know, mid-figure. The same is kind of true for the battlesuit version, but this one definitely had a bit more love put in. But that's not to say I liked it, because I don't. The suit is just far too flat for it to have any lick of aura. but the weird red thing on her chest is really well executed. But I don't know. Throw it in the trash, both of them. Get them out of here. Now, I haven't mentioned it, but the Resident Evil movies, which I do not like, were coming out since 2002, but hadn't seen any representation in action figure form. I wonder why. But besides that, Hot Toys finally delivered for the fans who had been waiting and brought us the movie's original character, Alice, who looked really, really good, all things considered. I think she looks really cool, personally. Hot Toys' specialty, at least at that time, was definitely real humans, so I'm sure having one finally for Resident Evil was like a lob of the century for them. But yeah, she looks really good and comes with a multitude of movie-specific accessories that I don't understand because I don't remember a lick of those movies. So we are moving on. Other side quests we didn't cover include the game Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City that came out, which is a squad-based shooter based in the Resident Evil universe, and it is not very good. So I'm as surprised as you to learn that PlayArts Kai made a figure from this game. And not like Resident Evil 4 Leon or RE3 Jill, but whatever. No, they made Lupo. Yes, the very famous character Lupo that we all love. But besides everything else, she was really cool looking. She's very reminiscent of the PlayArts Kai Catwoman, but the gas mask helps for a different ways of displaying and offers a cool base look for the figure. I don't know, maybe I'm a Lupo fan after all. But moving on, the next installment of Resident Evil was set to release in 2012. This was Resident Evil 6, and when it came out, it sold like crazy. And surely that must mean the reviews are raving as well. Oh, never mind. Yeah, Resident Evil 6 is definitely the most unattractive of the main series. Gameplay was not Resident Evil, man. I mean, it had the zombies, but I mean, that was pretty much it. It was definitely the most ambitious, but ambitious doesn't mean good. So people weren't exactly excited to play all the different campaigns. Even Leon looks stupid in this game. Like, how do you make this dude look stupid? That's how I knew this game wasn't for me. But there were figures released for RE6. Not a lot, but there were some. Leon and Helena. The bad part is that PlayArts Kai saved their best for last because this will be it for PlayArts Kai and Resident Evil. Helena looked really good. I think the hair really sells it, and her fit lends itself to action figure form. It honestly looks really cool. Leon wasn't anything to scoff at either. He looked really good. But it just makes me mad. It makes me wish we literally had any other version of Leon except this one. But he does look good and shockingly faithful to the game. Both of them do. Especially since that last outing was so rough. PlayArts Kai needed this dub. Hot Toys also released their Resident Evil 4 Ada while they cooked up the Resident Evil 6 figures. And the improvement in quality from their first to last RE4 figure is staggering. This very, very faithful version of Ada from RE4 is so cool. I can't think of anything to complain about because she just looks so good. So, I mean, good job, Hot Toys. Look guys, look. But the oven was indeed done with the RE6 figures. So they released RE6 Ada and Leon, which are great choices in my opinion. These companies love Leon and I'm here for it. These two just looked really faithful, and the strides Hot Toys made in their quality over the years were realized with the worst game, but that's okay. And if you're a fan of RE6, I'm glad you could find joy in something that I couldn't. But since Hot Toys had matured into what we know today, these figures offered so much in terms of looks and articulation. I really can't say much more than, just look.
Stupid man thing!
Welcome to the family, son.
Since the release of Resident Evil 6, there have been many Resident Evil games to come out, 4 of which are in my top 5, and all of them having insane success that revived the franchise. But despite that, there were little to no action figure success for the series. Nendoroids were coming out, but personally, if I have $70 to spend and it's between a Nendoroid, 3 Marvel Legends, 2 NECA figures, or a SH Figure Arts, let's just say Nendoroid isn't even on the waiting list. But other than those being released, there were these 1/6 scale Resident Evil 2 figures by Toys. Toys. I don't collect this scale, but I see the appeal. I love how the Resident Evil 2 models look in game, and this is just spot on. They released a Claire and a Leon, and both with a whole host of accessories. But also Ada, who could swap outfits and looked super faithful. There were other 1/6 scale figures like MT Toys, but If I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't care about these figures because personally I collect 1/12 scale. And that's where the issues arise. There have been, let's count them, there have been 0 official Resident Evil action figure releases in this scale since NECA.
Is this nigga serious?
Yeah, bro, Capcom must just hate money because what is the reason? Genuinely, what is the reason? Imagine a Mayfix Leon or a Diamond Select Chris or a Figuarts Claire or a Jada Toys Jill, man. Anything. But no, nothing. That's where the unsung heroes of the action figure community come out to play. The third-party companies. There are many that produce great quality stuff, but none are like Patriot Studios, who have been cooking up banger after banger after banger after banger. Leon, Lady D, Lady D's freaky daughter, a Liquor, Chainsaw Ganado, Chris, Krauser, and Nemesis, man. Nemesis. These are definitive Resident Evil figures. They mix amazing articulation with amazing detail. Like, I'm still at awe at how good these look. And I mean, okay, yeah, they're pretty expensive, but when you factor in that it's a small company and the value you get with these figures is really, really great, I honestly think it's worth it. I just wish I could have gotten any one of them, which is the downside to these third-party companies. They don't have as many hands as the big companies, so the stock is limited, but the demand isn't. But this is where we are today. Third-party companies carrying the Resident Evil license, action figure-wise. And I'm so disappointed about it, I really am. This is literally Capcom's most popular series, and they're letting Street Fighter have all the fun. Which I'm not complaining about, really. I have the Alpha Ryu from Storm Collectibles. But I just want the love to be shared, you know? I just hope in the future that this part of the video is super irrelevant because we're just going to be eating good in Resi figures. But with that, this 2-part series is over. And man, it has been a journey. But maybe the Resident Evil figures were really just the friends we made along the way. Or not. But hey, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. And if you made it to the end of the video, comment, where's everybody going? Bingo.